The Cheating Death Podcast is a comedy podcast that contains information, language, subject matter, and course material that may not be appropriate for all listeners. Your discretion in this matter is advised. On today's episode of the Cheating Death Podcast, we interview the owner and host, content creator, and ever so jovial, jaw-dropping, and jocular Jake K of AltJakeTakesOn. Remember, he is on both Twitter and YouTube, and he comes out with content on the regular, which is one of the reasons we wish to pick his brain, interview him, and provide him a platform to reach a new height, a new audience, for people to enjoy the content that he so beautifully crafts and creates. We also provide you with a new Annihilation Announcement and a top 5 list, joke of the episode, and more. So, grab yourself an Arizona iced tea, sit back, relax, and let us show you how to cheat death. This is your news anchor, the Cleric of Chaos, and this is your Annihilation Announcement. Arizona is one of the most misunderstood and underappreciated states of the Union, known for its hot temperatures, the Grand Canyon, and of course everyone's favorite city, Phoenix, Arizona. Arizona is an absolutely outstanding state that most people will not have an opportunity to see in their lifetime, predominantly because they're more focused on more quote-unquote interesting states like New York or California. Well, let us tell you, dear listener, that it is an absolutely outstanding opportunity for you to go check out Arizona for yourself, whether it be the Grand Canyon or Phoenix, heaven forbid, Scottsdale. Arizona has a lot for people to enjoy, and we here at the program highly encourage you to go check the state out for yourself. This has been your news anchor, the Cleric of Chaos, and this has been your Annihilation Announcement.
Willkommen, meine Freunde. Guten Morgen, guten Tag, eine gute Nacht ist deine Reisende, deine Ausländer, deine Cleric of Chaos. And here with us today, we have the privilege, the honor, the gratitude to be interviewing the legendary Leviathan of the Los Angeles music scene in the 2000s, the monolith of media, the creator, owner, and host of AltJakeTakesOn. Ladies and gentlemen, the jovial, the jocular, and the jazzy Jake. Hey, how are we today, Jake?
Wow, that's one hell of an intro, man. I'm not sure I can live up to that, but I will do my best. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. That's awesome. Yeah. No, I don't think I've had a better intro yet. I've done a few different guest appearances, but that's definitely top. It's going to be hard to top that one. I appreciate it.
Hey, at the end of the day, Jake, it's all about trying to provide content for those in whom you love and for those in whom you want to hear a little bit more about you. And we're grateful that you took some time to interview with us today and discuss some of the finer elements of not only what makes you who you are, but also our grand design in society today.
Love it.
Here.
Yeah, no, I'm down. I'm ready. Let's do it. I'm excited to talk to you. It should be a lot of fun.
Sounds good, man. So tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your history, and exactly what led you to where you are now.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting story of how I got here with it. But I mean, I'm a guy in my 40s. I live in Phoenix. I've been in Phoenix, Arizona, more of my life than I haven't. But no, the LA music scene. I moved out to LA in early 2010 to try to make it in the music industry. Now, I knew I didn't have any actual talent. I played in bands in high school, but I knew that I didn't really have the talent that way. But what I was good with was talking to people. Like in the real world, I've been a recruiter by trade where I, interview people and get people hired for jobs, for careers, because I'm a really good judge of character and a pretty good way of reading people. So I became a manager of bands, actually. I managed my friend's band from college and started with managing his band. He was the drummer for a band. They were called Red Circle Underground, otherwise known as RCU. They never really made it, but they were pretty decent. And then I ended up managing Frankie and the Fixers and another band called Kiev, and that was the band that actually ended up pushing decently well. Like, the best thing I can say is one of our songs opened up the episode of The Walking Dead. If you know The Walking Dead, I forget the character, but there was a blonde girl, the younger sister of one of the main characters. But in the episode that she dies, their song opened the show. So it was pretty cool to get them on there. But I also made the decision that when I hit my 30s, I should probably give it up, and so I moved back home. And I've always been interested in music. I worked in a record store right after high school. I graduated high school in May of 2000, worked in a record store from June of 2000 until I went to London at the end of 2003. So that was good. That music's been a big part of my life. And then the other big part of my life is I always like entertainment, and with movies, television, whatever. What my probable favorite form of that entertainment has always been professional wrestling. So I sort of have always been into it, and something I've always enjoyed for the storytelling of it. Less so much I like the matches, but I'm here more for the storylines and what happens after them, and how you get to the matches and how you get to the stories of it, because they're very, as over the top as it is, they're at a good human core. And sometime last year, I started making appearances on another wrestling show that's called Pro Wrestle Times. He kept bringing me on. And then it kind of went to the point where I was like, well, I can't just keep doing that where I'm making appearances on somebody else's show. I should start my own channel that people were suggesting that I do. And at the beginning of this year in 2025, I launched the channel and tried to come up with a funny name. My name is Jake. My last name starts with the letters ALT. If people know the band AltJ, that's where I get my name from. I took it. There was a problem at some point where some people think I was political with the alt part of it. I'm like, I'm not alt-right. I'm not alt-left. I'm just AltJake. That's and it was from the band name. So I was able to, I came up with that, and then I started doing the AltJakeTakesOn stuff, initially just on YouTube, but we recently got onto all podcast platforms. I will shout out you. Thank you for that, Cleric. You kind of gave me the right channel, the right push of where to go and get it started. And I've got all of our, 39 recorded episodes. We do a recorded episode every week where we just kind of talk about the week in wrestling and have discussions about that. And then our two big ones, because that's the other thing. I didn't just want to do the standard review wrestling and talk and just kind of talk about what happened. I kind of wanted to do a more of a conversation type thing where I kind of consider myself a conversationalist. The idea I was looking at is kind of more this kind of tell my age, but if you ever watch the old late night talk shows, there was a guy in the 70s named Dick Cavett who is my hero, because what he would do is he would have discussions with people where it wouldn't just be, hey, what did you film for your movie? Or, hey, we heard that you're dating this person. They would get in discussions about anything that would kind of stay in the entertainment world but branch off. And that's really what we do. We use the week in wrestling to kind of talk about different storylines and what's going on, but then we'll branch off into something that's more historical based, or maybe something how it ties into a movie or a TV show or something else, so we can kind of branch out and have a deep conversation about whatever it is. And we really solidify that on our Sunday night show. Right now, we're still doing it on Twitter, on X. That platform seems to be having some issues, so we're going to continue to do it there, but we may have to move it. But we'll record them and put them on our YouTube and our podcast feed, where we just have a discussion where we'll either bring somebody on and have a discussion with them, or it'll just be George and I, my co-host. His name's George Capter, where we'll discuss whatever it is, whether it's, a recent storyline, the recent, a pay-per-view, and just kind of, and then we'll bring people on from the audience and just have a good full conversation, which is really what I like to do. I mean, even on our Thursday night show on YouTube at Thursday at 8:45 Eastern on our YouTube channel, we go live to discuss the night before's AEW Dynamite, which I try to enjoy the show. I like wrestling, as AEW isn't my cup of tea with the way they present it, but we weren't discussing the show a lot, and so we want to be able to talk about it for all people. What we've learned is it's not a lot of people's cup of tea, so if we review it segment by segment, we make the joke. It's like the old scrubbing bubbles. We watch the show so you don't have to. So it's all about having fun. That's really what it is. We're trying to be authentic. We're being ourselves. We're keeping it to professional wrestling for now because that's kind of an easy world to start with. Because that's the other thing I'll admit is I had no idea about any of this when I started. It was just I was making appearances on this other show, and multiple people were like, "You should have your own show." Okay, why not? Apparently, I've got the voice for it. I've got the energy for it. It is something I've always wanted to do, just never had the balls to do it. So I do now. So that's kind of my life story in a nice little compact 5 minutes for you.
Well, recording and composing are two different things, and you've been on both sides of the fence where it explains itself to you both mentally and emotionally differently. You feel a little bit different when you're full out producing an entire program, going from idea to writing it down to implementation to discussing it with others, bouncing it all off. It's an entire creative process that you kind of hit the nail on the head there. You are a guy who has a tremendous amount of energy. You have a certain type of personality about you to where you are entirely and fully transparent, blunt, direct, and to the point. The program here is obviously a huge fan of transparency, especially when it comes to skin color, as the member of the translucent pale variety here. But when you take into consideration all of the ups and all the downs that you've had throughout your career, moving and fully understanding that now, especially with how podcasts are consumed, how media is consumed, we are both kind of in an area to where our creative juices, so to speak, are able to flow a little bit more freely than what would be in a standard conventional iHeartRadio or a Chorus or Paramount level program.
Yeah.
So to an extent, I'm 100% positive that, when you were a kid, you may or may not have taken a tape deck or an 8-track and you may have made some silly or fun recordings just to see how you would sound on the radio. If you were to tell young Cleric, that one day he would be hosting a program or he would be even speaking about anything in any manner on any form of media for anyone in the world here, like, take 30 years ago me now, and I would not have believed a single word. I'd be looking at this guy and be like, who is this person? Why are you doing in my house? There's absolutely no way that either you or I have been able to predict anything that's come, but with what you have done with not only your spaces, the maximization of how you utilize your Twitter profile, how you format your episode posts, how you take time to craft and focus on each and every single element of what makes your programs. You and George have a tremendous element. It is akin, and I do not feel as if this is too old or archaic, but I'm fairly certain you are familiar with the comedic stylings of Johnny Carson and Ed McMahon and Walt Matthau and Jack Lemmon. You give that kind of vibe. When it comes to the level of journalism, and for lack of a better term, it is that when you're discussing things in the format that you do, you two deliver a very warming, comforting, transparent, almost relaxing. You're listening to your friends just talk about things, and exactly what you are looking for, you're completing it. You're doing very well. You have a lot of people who very much so enjoy all of the content that you create. And again, the formatting of your posts, people could learn how you format them and how they are used against this new algorithm that constantly goes back and forth on X.
That's always the ever-changing algorithm, too. Yeah, no,
always changing. And now we are posting to an artificial intelligence to see what it likes and what it understands the most, so we get more volume. Hooray! We live in Blade Runner times. It's a beautiful time to be alive. When we look at our modern day standards, you worked in the music industry directly in Los Angeles, and you worked on a record store in 03, throughout the 2000s. Understand that not only do we not see record stores that much anymore, but between then and now, and we'll also get into this when we do the 5 list of songs a little bit later. Sure. But what do you notice as the primary difference in your dealings and in your workings within the music industry in the early 2000s versus now primarily?
So first off, I want to at least go back really quick to the Johnny Carson thing, because it's funny that you say that, because once I decided that I was actually going to go ahead and do this, I wasn't sure of the format I was going to go ahead yet. And one of the first things I said is I'm going to be open to any ideas. I'm willing to try anything. Shout out to George. Both the live show on Thursdays and the Sunday Spaces were both his idea that I was like, sure. The thing on Twitter, I was like, that's not going to work. This is going to be stupid. And it's my favorite thing we do every week now. We've been doing it for 30 weeks, and I love it. So I'm willing to take any chances. But he reached out to me, and he's like, hey, I would, if you want to, I would like to at least do some show with you, like one show a week, where he even said his exact words were, I'll be your Andy Richter. He's like, you're going to be the star, you're going to be the host, you're going to be the thing, but I will kind of help and push. And he was like, we'll do it once a week. And that was the recorded shows. And then like a month into it, he's like, do you want to do this thing on Spaces? Absolutely. And now it's like, if I ever created content without him, I would feel bad. Like, now we're a partnership, and that was not the idea. Like, had I known that was going to be the plan, probably wouldn't have named it all after myself. I feel kind of like a jerk for that, but we are where we are. It is what it is. He's happy with it. He's found a passion in it. And honestly, one of my favorite things has been bringing that out, because now, yeah, it's still the dynamic where I'm the host and he's the co-host, but there's been plenty of times, whether depending on the guest or just the topic, I let him go. Like, there's been times where he's like, hey, I want to talk about this, and I won't have much on the topic. Like, the example is when the whole Raja Jackson thing happened with the beating up the guy at the indie event. I was in San Diego on vacation, on the first vacation I'd taken in like a year and a half with my wife. I knew of it, but I wasn't paying attention. He wanted to cover it, and I told him, like, I don't know too much. He's like, you won't have to, just follow my lead. Great. One of our best clips we've ever done. Like, it was awesome, so it's been a really cool partnership. But to the music thing, another funny thing about tying into the past is when I worked at the record store, it was from 2000 to 2003. That record store still exists because it's an independent, like, new used record store in, I think they're in Vegas now, so it's not just Arizona, it's Arizona and Vegas, called Zia Records. But when you go into the shop now, like, they still have music, but they also have, like, toys and games and way more T-shirts, and it's become more, it's almost like a Spencer's Gifts with music now, because that's where the money is. No one is really going in and buying, like, CDs of stuff. If people are going to buy physical music, they're going to buy, like, a special edition or a vinyl something, or one of the 10,000 copies of a Taylor Swift CD or whatever for the different versions. But no one's just going in on New Music Tuesday, when music used to come out only on Tuesdays, and go in and buy the new albums or whatever. So it's just, like, the world exists. People still listen to music, but nobody's buying physical records anymore. No one goes out and purchases them, which there's good and bad to it, because there was nothing worse than in the 90s or 2000s where you bought a CD because you heard one song and you're like, I'm going to try this band out. And that one song was the only good one. Like, I can remember that happening. And it's like, great, I just spent, $17 and 3.5 minutes on this 45-minute thing are good. Great. Awesome. Because, but so there's good and bad to it, but it's definitely a different world. And I feel like we see a lot of that, because when we'll get to it, yes, but when you're like, hey, we'll talk about music from 2000 to 2025, I was like, that's going to take me a minute, because there's most of what I listen to, there is some stuff, but most of what I listen to, I would say, came out between like 94 and 2004. Like, that's my formative year. I was born in 1982. Everybody loves their formative stuff. Like, we all kind of go back to that nostalgia with it, but there is definitely some. I don't have as much new music as I used to, but there's still some. It's hard though, because it's hard to get exposed to it like you used to either, because the radio is only going to be playing what they're told to anymore. If you might be able to find some of on the algorithms on like a Spotify with the For You stuff, but a lot of times too, that's also pushed. It's all put in front of you to be homogenized, and they put it out to where, oh, well, if we send this out to 7 million people, 500,000 will like it, and that's all we're really going for. But what about the other 6,500,000 that go, well, this sucks?
Well, like, you look at it from that perspective too, and you're like, this isn't going to be the nostalgia episode, but there was a charm into walking into a Radio Shack in 1996 as a kid and listening to the CD sampler, where you were given a headphone set and you were able to pick between 5 different CDs and listen to like 30 seconds of a track off of a particular one. And it was just so beautiful. I mean, to walk into a mall, to realize, hey, I'm about to go grab myself a treat, or at that age, I'm going to get a donut today, or whatever. And then to be able to be like, oh, wait a minute, this band that I like, for me, full transparency, it was like Hypocrisy, Rammstein, Limp Bizkit. And if we're talking like late 2000s, we're talking like Static X, Seven Dust, Deftones, all that. So
Okay, yeah.
if we're looking at like the amount of times that I would go into a Radio Shack hoping, Seven Dust's Black Album would be on there randomly, never, ever, 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 ever seeing it on there because for obvious reasons, it's just way too fucking vulgar. But we take into consideration the charm of walking into a Blockbuster in like 95, 96, or like 97, 98. Oh, wow, Pierce Brosnan's in GoldenEye. Got to pick up that VHS. Oh, look at this. James Cameron just came up with something else that isn't Titanic. Let's pick this up and rent it. All of that's gone. Sure,
Yeah.
Netflix is great. Hulu, whatever, Hulu. But you look at the whole streaming service platform, Amazon, Netflix. You look at the invasion of these streaming platforms from companies like Disney, Paramount Plus, and to a lesser extent HBO. Although I will give HBO credit, HBO releases a lot of top-tier content, and It Welcome to Derry has not been that bad. It's been pretty solid. But you look at how all of it is consumed now. You don't go out on a mission to find a videotape. You don't go out on a mission to find music anymore. You can literally just roll over, grab your phone, and be like, all right, and then boom, it's there. So,
and it's funny you mentioned those companies too. I don't mean to cut you off, but when you mentioned it, like, look at what they pay for. Like, obviously, yes, their new stuff and like their original content, sure, but like they pay tons for that existing content because so many people just go back to like their comfort shows. Like, how many people are just watching Seinfeld, Friends, The Office, whatever that is that they grew up on, that they're like, for me, my comedy shows, like, I like some of them, but my two biggest comedy shows growing up were Roseanne and That 70s Show. Like, those are my comfort those were 90s, early to mid 90s, and That 70s Show was late 90s sitcoms that meant something to me. I've rewatched those tons and tons and tons of times because it's the comfort thing. And so they care about the new content, but how often do they cancel it too? Because it's like, it's just not making the money. Because even though there is this new stuff, whether it's music, TV, movies, or whatever, they exist, but it doesn't make what it was. There's people go back to what they knew because it's readily available for them. And, I can remember also too, walking into the same record store I ended up working at and like hearing a band over the speakers and being like, wait, I know this guy's voice. Talking to one of the employees who played the CD, and he's like, oh, you like this band? Oh, it's this band Knapsack. Well, the lead singer is now in this other band called The Jealous Sound. That's what they were playing. And I'm like, holy shit. And I went and bought their album that day. How, like, that was at a pivotal moment in my musical life in 1999. Does that stuff happen to anybody now? Except everything's online with the Spotify playlist. I mean, maybe someone could become friends with somebody and go, oh, let me look at your playlist and see if there is something I like out of it, but it's just not the same. Or like when you put in a CD that you made for whatever and put it in, I just don't know if that happens anymore. And it's sad about it because, like you said, you would go on a mission. You're like, oh my God, I heard this, or I saw a preview for this movie that came out 2 years ago. It's got to be here somewhere. I've got to be able to find it. Like, I want to see it. It's not like, there's the hunt was part of the deal. It's back to, like I say, with professional wrestling, they always say, like, the money's in the chase for a babyface to win the title. The money's in the chase. Well, a lot of the fun, I can remember some of my best stories with some of my friends in high school would be to drive to the other independent record store on the other side of town that was called CDGB's, and we only kind of knew about it because it was literally on the other side. Like, Phoenix is a very spread out area. We were on like the northwest side. This was on the southeast side. So it's going to take like an hour just to get there. And then so the whole time you're driving, talking about it, thinking about it, and then you get the album and you listen to it the entire way home on the CD just playing through. There was really something magical about it. And I hate to be one of those people that like always wants to look back, because a lot of the podcasters, even in any space, their whole world is talking about the past, shitting on the present. And I'm not trying to shit on the present. I want more of that to happen for people because it's impactful. It really is what made me as big of a music fan as I am, was because of those moments.
You look back at movies and you even think about current modern productions that are not only in television-related type of syndication, Netflix shows or HBO shows,
Right.
or whatever, but you look at what still makes them successful. and that is the boilerplate format. If it involves like teenagers or young adults, people in college, there is still that same formula that was made successful through at way far back as like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, followed up with like the American Pie series, followed up with like the Not Another Teen movies, the scary movies to a lesser extent. It just keeps continuing, but for new generations. Blue Mountain State was probably one of the greatest underrated shows of all time, and one of the funniest, ridiculous shows that you could ever watch.
Yeah.
But that came 12 years after a really gritty, dark comedy in Titus, which is hands down one of the best sitcoms ever created. Definitely needed more shows, and Christopher Titus is one of the best comedians on the planet, hands down.
Hilarious.
But you look at the difference between a Blue Mountain State and a Titus. Titus said whatever the hell they tried to get away with. Blue Mountain State, as much as they tried to be gritty, they had to dance around things. One of the main guys from Blue Mountain State ended up being Jack Reacher. So you look at Amazon as being like the primary property behind the Reacher. You look at Blue Mountain State as being one of the very first kind of like, okay, we're going to test this out as being like a Netflix series sort of deal, an HBO series sort of deal, and how successful that was. But you also take into account 12 years prior, all the way, like I said, back to 2000, 2001, when your only option was to turn on your television, flip it to a station, and hope that your sitcom was on at that time. Like you said, the Seinfelds, the Comfort Feelings, the Friends, all of those shows have stood the test of time. And as you said, there are tons of properties that want exclusive rights because they don't want people to go to other platforms to watch it. They want full ownership over it so they can therefore maximize their numbers and retain their viewership. You look at Monty Python's Flying Circus, one of the greatest sketch comedy series that has ever graced the planet, never gets old, never is not funny, never gets repetitive, even if you watch it dozens and dozens of times. Monty Python's Life of Brian, Monty Python's The Holy Grail, 50 years ago, one of the greatest movies. Every single scene has something that is quotable, and there are so many movies that have tried to recreate that comedic element, but with different circumstances, different characters, but haven't been able to pull it off. So what do we have now? We have the standard boilerplate sitcom format of let's try to focus on a current event, and let's try to maximize the trauma of that current event or the absurdity of that current event and make it as funny as possible. So maybe, 50% of our audience will get it and the other 50% they'll get it in time. So we look at how funny things used to be from a written perspective. Curb Your Enthusiasm, Bob Einstein, Larry David, outstanding comedians, brilliant writers, tremendous minds. But who do we have today to match that? As I've said before, one of the reasons why we experience such a homogenous kind of media experience now isn't just because of the lack of outstanding true characters in television shows. Where's a Mr. Rogers? Where's a Bob Ross? Where's a Mr. Dress Up? Where's a Jim Henson? Like, these people are gone. To be crystal clear, there is going to be no one that will ever replace those four people. One of the reasons you do what you do, in a way, is to provide people with the same comfort as a Mr. Rogers or a Mr. Dress Up did. One of the reasons, actually the primary reason I do what I do with this program, with music, with every single element of art I do, is to be that comfort zone, is to be all understanding of anyone and everyone who dares cross our door. You want some life experience that I have? You want to know how to change a tire? You want to know how to change the battery in your car? You want to know how to maybe make your schedule a little bit more efficient so you can fit more stuff in throughout your day? Send me an email. Give me a call. Life is being so homogenized to a point, and not only to where media has been brought to such a ridiculous level, but also humanity, characters, people, personalities, personas. We look at who we are. I look at who you are as a person when you do your program, and I hear you and George go back and forth, and I think of two genuine human beings who want nothing more than to make people smile. I tune into a couple of different programs run by Dallas Cash, Nessa, of like different Culture Clash Network programs. Their podcasts there are always so filled with excitement and energy, and they're trying to do it to make people happy. When you look at different programs that are offered by people that we are well aware of, Jeff Lippman, Evil Dose, for example, provides a ton of content, needs to have over 1 million people downloading every episode that he puts out because he puts the effort in. He researches, he interviews laureates, visionaries, people in whom would be able to change the course of our world. And yet, some homie who's throwing a basketball at some guy in a grocery store is getting 52 million views.
Yeah, I mean, it's because people, I mean, well, especially with Dose, it shows the garden of thought. People don't want to think. It's one of the unfortunate things about it, you know. And it's actually what you were saying before, like how like most, especially media now, they're just trying to get as many hits as possible. They're trying to appeal to as many masses as you can. And a lot of us that are, whether, I mean, not on the fringes of society, but kind of, we're not just going right down the mainstream. Like when somebody says, you know, oh, you know, American Idol's great, 50 million people can't be wrong. I'm like, are you sure? 50 million people have absolutely been wrong multiple times. I can give you evidence in the proof of it. Like we don't, so just yet we're not looking for that. And they've kind of cut a lot of those contents out. When you talked about Bob Ross or Mr. Rogers, they didn't make that much money. Like PBS was fantastic, but there's a reason that capitalists want to cut it because it doesn't make enough money for them. But what it did is it raised a generation of human beings to be decent. You know what I mean? Like it's just it drives you nuts when those things get cut out. Like people are, you know, PBS and the documentaries and the shows. Like it's one of the things that I grew up on and still enjoy PBS content. Like Ken Burns just put out the American Revolution documentary. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm through like the 3rd episode. It's awesome. Like this is great content that more people need, but there's also that part where people don't want to seem intelligent or intelligence isn't cool. Like I don't know. That's again why I try to be diverse.
That guy is one of the greatest documentarians America has ever produced, ever birthed, and yet, as you just mentioned, he still goes through PBS. You are probably well aware that Mr. Rogers was not required, but he requested to go in front of Congress when they were trying to cut funding for PBS in either the 60s or the 70s. And all he had to do was get one person to listen when he was saying one of the most important parts of the program, which is literally just being a good person. And you want to know what? This guy smugly, I think you earned your $20 million. Like, the absolute, the war against education, the war against independent thought, the war against decency, for lack of a better term, without getting too overtly, you know, negative or nihilistic about it, we look at life in a historical way, in a sense that a lot of people see it as linear, but in reality, it's a flat circle. It just keeps repeating itself. History is one of those things that we are doomed to repeat if we do not learn the mistakes of the past. And
the scenes just get changed. They just get more updated, but it's the same shit. That's how it always works. Yeah.
Like universities don't really mean much at all anymore. Colleges don't really mean much anymore. The only reason why they exist is so you can show employers that you can sit and focus for 4 years and get a piece of paper. That's literally it. Yep. So you take into consideration, you know, all of your college dropouts like your Bill Gates, your Steve Jobs, and all these other people. You want to know what separates them from other people? Money. Their families had money, trust funds, they had support systems, they had all backups and all that. All these crazy stories you hear about all of these people who came from nothing and became something. 90% of those people came from something, but it just was not categorized as much because the rest of society at that time already had enough. Yep. So it was already like, oh, wow, this person came from a medium-sized home? My God, it is true.
He built this. Yeah, no, they're like, oh my gosh, he built it in his garage. He had a garage. Like, that's the thing. Like, that's the difference. There's not everybody had to where they could spend the time with it and doing that because they didn't have the funding of it. Yeah, no, I'm a child of 2 teachers. Like, I didn't grow up, like, on the poverty line, but we didn't grow up with everything. Like, didn't even get cable in my house. I was, like, 13. Like, you know, it's part of the process. Yeah.
No, but you look at it and like, you know, both you and I are at the age where, you know, life is now a sequence of not necessarily days, weeks, months, so on and so forth, but now it just completely cascades to years. We look back at 2020 and it feels like it was 6 months ago. We look back at 2024 and it feels like a fever dream. But at the same time, we still look at life somewhat optimistically and somewhat pragmatically in the sense of just like, okay, all right. I realize there's 8.2 billion people here on this planet, but what we're going to do is we're going to try to make life as positive as we possibly can for those in whom may not have an entire clear direction or path as to where they may want to embark upon. We look at things from kind of an artistic perspective in the sense it's just like, yeah, we're not cutthroat business people. We are pretty intelligent when it comes to some level of having a business acumen, but are we the kinds of people that are going to be all Don Draper Madman sort of thing? Absolutely not. But you look at the way that you have approached things, how you handle things, how you talk with George, and how your content is different than a lot of the content that most people would consume as it pertains to what you mentioned in professional wrestling. Pro wrestling is one of those things where both you and I share a mutual understanding and or enjoyment of the profession. Yeah. Or, lately, I guess much to our chagrin, seeing as it appears, objectively speaking, that there appears to be a lot of like gaslighting happening within a particular company and within its fan base that makes it so unenjoyable to watch, that we kind of reach a point where, okay, we're just going to turn this off and we're going to hope it gets better, but like whatever. And then 6 weeks later we tune in, give it another shot, and then
it's the same shit. I'm not somebody who's like an eternal optimist, but I'm always going to try to find the good in everything, and especially with entertainment. Like one of my least favorite things in the world is like people whose their entire career or basis is just criticizing everything. Like one of the reasons, like I used to be a giant fan of Star Wars, but I got kind of away from it. Now people are like, because the movies got bad. I'm like, they were the same kind of stuff they always were, but the fan base just got unbearable. And that's one of the problems with a lot of, and that's where, because people just want to complain, and that's whether that's societal or whatever that is, the people they're going to look to like, what can I complain about now? What can piss me off? As opposed to like, hey, what did I like about this? What was good? And, and when George and I do reviews and stuff, I like when we disagree on things. Cause like you said, we can have a full on disagreement and not change each other's minds in any way. But I get where you're coming from. That's your opinion. Cool. Like we're able to still have a conversation and talk with it. And I feel like whether it's this space or any space, like whether it's talk radio or TV, like they've kind of gotten this gimmick where people are just going to scream at each other, disagree, and then their characters are supposed to hate each other, but in real life they don't. They're playing a character, but I don't know. I don't ever want to play a character. I'd rather just be me and kind of go forward with it and take it or leave it. And that's why we're not trying to grow to get 1 million subscribers. That'd be awesome, but hey, we like what we have. And what's cool is when I look at I don't pay too much attention to the stats, but what I pay attention to a lot of time is the retention rate, like the people that watch or listen to our stuff usually listen to all of it. We just don't have a ton of people watching, but that's fine. I'd rather really appeal to the people that like us and get who we are, and we'll grow organically from that. And that's awesome.
That's an excellent way of looking at it algorithmically and statistically too. When you look at the different types of analytics and information that's available, especially with podcasting, content creation, YouTube video making, and everything else in between, there are so many different
Oh my God, there's so much.
Number nerds. I love it so much when you're able to just analyze things down to a certain fine point. When you look at the different platforms that you have, like for example, when you and I were first discussing, you bringing your podcast onto a formal platform and making it fully downloadable and streamable. So it's one of the reasons why when you and I look at the types of needs and services we have, I'll be rather blunt. It is kind of a well-known thing that given the physiological nature of my condition, that things aren't exactly as financially okay as they generally should be when considering a podcasting plan or when considering this or when considering that. But after delaying it for 8.5 years, after being pushed myself, we finally released our first episode on the 7th of October Germany time, because that correlates with the 7th of October 1949, which was the first kind of like East Germany Day. That's where my father's family comes from, blah, 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 long story short. So when you came to me and when you were bouncing ideas off my head, I was just like, listen, dude, you want to just put all your shit up, get people to listen to it as much as they possibly can, put it into a medium to where if somebody wants to download a particular episode, they can. And you have you gave me credit for it, but like, dude, don't be doing that. You took that opportunity to look at the different mediums available to you. You maximized it. You not only create beautiful content, exceptionally crafted and well thought out on a weekly and multiple times a weekly basis, but you and George take every single amount of time to not only ensure that each and every single thing hits properly, but the engagement, the invitations, to not only speak and converse within the stream, but also to present ideas as objectively and as fairly as possible. Very there's a lot of gotcha podcasts where
Oh God, yeah.
sometimes the Busted Open podcast with Dave LaGreca and Bully Ray. Sometimes they'll get a little bit angry during call-in sessions, and they'll use it as a platform to not necessarily be overly egregious, but there will be times when some either troll fans or somebody who could be a troll fan will call in, and they'll just go right for the throat. Completely understood. But you and George take your perspective and your position as content creators very seriously. You treat your fans very well. And I think one of the things that makes you so successful and very easy to listen to is not only your energy and your demeanor, but also your loyalty to your fan base. The reality that you are creating content for people to listen to. And that's another reason why, when you take into consideration everything that you were originally thinking of when it came to putting your podcast onto different platforms, you made a sequence of decisions that had trial and error on either side of the road, and you still proceeded. You still took that risk. It takes courage. It takes fortitude. And I very much so want to congratulate you on the success of your program.
Appreciate that. One of my favorite things I've ever been taught is you don't regret the things that you do, you regret the things that you don't. So it was one of the things that I give you credit because you gave me the idea, you helped me figure out the right path. Because it's one of those things where it's an unfortunate thing in this space, in this world, where whether it's in the content creation world or wherever, but a lot of it and all the, people, they're only going to help you as much as you can help them, or they're only going to try to you know what I mean? And there was times where I thought I had people that were like ready to help me or going to do stuff, and then for whatever reasons didn't happen with it. So when you get people that just want, because that's where I've told people too, whether it's certain apps that I use or certain systems, like, hey, I use that. If you have questions, let me know. I'm happy to help. I would rather help somebody and them grow 10 times faster than me. Like that doesn't say anything bad about me. That just means they had the right ticket for them. Like, I don't know. It's just.
Well, it's one of the reasons I use StreamYard, or at least I'm trying to slowly but surely figure it out to do interviews rather than the 9 other platforms that I generally use, is because Rich Dow took time out of his day multiple times to, kind of push me in the direction of using StreamYard, and that it was the easiest, it was the most simple, the easiest layout and all this and that they have free plans, and they do. And for this particular stream, for whatever reason, the recording functionality on the actual browser isn't working. So, ladies and gentlemen of the listener and viewers of this particular video, when it is uploaded to the drive a little bit later on after this episode is recorded, understand that StreamYard is indeed a tremendous platform. But what Jake was saying about the content creation circle, whether it be professional wrestling, whether it be sports, whether it be music, whether it be current events, whether it be geopolitical affairs, literally anything under the content creation sun, there are very few times where you will not encounter a gatekeeper, an individual,
Right.
a group, a network, a platform, a whomever, in whom may or may not have said at some points throughout the point of time that, hey, all you listeners, we encourage you to be your best and do whatever you feel. Okay, their podcast. Well, it just so happens that I would like to do a podcast of my own. Do you have any advice for me? Crickets and tumbleweeds all across the land. Our goal here at the Cheating Death podcast, and more specifically directly, and Jonas, you can, you hate on me for this later, I don't care, but I want to help as many people as humanly possible with all of the skills. Like, I'm not capable of using my body that much right now, won't be for the next couple of years, so I have to look at what I am able to offer the world, what I am able to do to help lighten people's schedules and help lighten people's loads, help make it so that people's lives are a little bit less stressful, and that's simple. Communication, efficiency, time management, program integration, identification of audio, video, technical situations, circumstances, fixing, all that stuff. Literally, jack of all trades, master of none, completely at your service. If there's anything you need, email the cheatingdeathpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll be more than happy to help you sort it out. It does not matter what the medium is. We will do what we can. Why? Because as you mentioned so specifically, in 2025, it appears as if there is a general nihilistic approach to life, a general cynicism now. People do not want to assist those they feel cannot do something for them in return. In my perspective, that's no way to live. I just want to be able to meet cool people who happen to have a nice way of living, and by way of living, I don't necessarily mean financially. I mean they're just good, decent people who don't yell at customer service representatives and don't kick babies and eat dogs. Or
never screamed at a waiter in my life.
Exactly. We look at it from that perspective, and you are one of those unique kinds of people that I have been fortunate enough to meet, that I have been fortunate enough to befriend, that we look at things in a somewhat similar light. And throughout our own unique respective journeys in life, I'm always going to be at least someone who is going to try to offer a solution. Whenever people come to somebody with a problem, 9 times out of 10, all they want to do is vent. They don't necessarily want a solution. Whenever a solution is offered, they may acquiesce, but it also may take them some time to attempt to implement it. When we look at things from a grand scale, life is only going to become more complex, more convoluted, and as simple as communication becomes, it's going to be a little bit harder for people to understand genuine human connection, genuine and willing to help. Like, can't even tell you how many people I have met who have completely blown my mind in the past 3 months, who are pure, genuine, kind of heart, absolutely will and want to do anything and everything to help people. And I feel at the end of the day, by meeting some of those people, by being put into touch with some others, by getting back to what I feel is one of my fortes in being a journalist and interviewing people, wanting to take this to the next level, you are on a similar trajectory to where, don't take this from me, but I do have a very strong feeling that 12 months from now, we'll be sitting here doing another little program, whether it be on your show or mine, and you're going to be doing very well algorithmically. You are going to be seeing a lot of new people. You are going to have a lot more retention. Why? Because you are committed to your craft. Regardless of how your quote-unquote shoot life goes, I can already tell that this is going to be something to where you are going to become a Leviathan, as I like to put it. You, Jake, are one of the nicest people that I've ever had the privilege of meeting. And when we take into consideration this list that we're going to get into, I don't want you to take 2000, 2025. I know it's what we discussed. Let's go with your comfort zone. So let's go with just your top 5 bands between like 94 and 05. And I'll go with mine between like 95 and 15 or something like that. So we are going to get into the part of the program where we are going to get into our top 5 list segments. And Jake, as we have discussed, the list of the program today is indeed going to be your general top 5 bands. So to be succinct and direct, there will be no explanation of the bands. On this particular side, I'm just going to drop rapid fire, and then please take all the time to explain your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So in no particular order, number 1, we have Rammstein. Number 2, we have Seven Dust. Number 3, we have Hypocrisy. Number 4, we have Lindemann. And number 5, we have Static X.
Okay. So we're going to be completely different, but I respect and have a lot of appreciation for those bands. But so my top 5 is it's all over the place, but my number 1 band, I've got them tattooed on my forearm, is Radiohead. Like, they've been my favorite band since 1996. And that's not changing. Like, mostly it's the Bends and mostly it's the Bends, honestly. That's my favorite record of all time. Like, I have the last line of it tattooed on my forearm. Followed pretty closely, because the more I see them live, the more I love them, Nine Inch Nails. I've always been a big Nine Inch Nails guy. My third favorite band is a little bit different, because most people look at them of how they've been successful now, but I watched them before they got big, and that's Jimmy Eat World, because they're from Mesa, Arizona, so that's like 30 minutes east of where I grew up, and they played I started seeing them in 1997, and they would play, literally they would open or be like the second opener with anybody who came through, whether it would be like At the Drive-In, the Get Up Kids, the Promise Ring, the Deftones. Like, they would play with anybody. So I've seen them. I tried to do a count a couple years ago, because they had their 25th anniversary as a band at a venue by my place, and I got to get tickets for it. And it was like a 300-person venue. But I lost count. Somewhere around 70 is where I think I've seen them live. So they've just been, they're my comfort band. They're like my go-to. Number 4 would be Refused. I'm not sure if you know who they are. Now, they're a Swedish post-hardcore band. They put out an album in 1998 called The Shape of Punk to Come. That was way ahead of its time and was right. It did become The Shape of Punk to Come. If you haven't listened to them, I highly recommend them. You probably heard the song New Noise, because it was in a lot of sports movies or whatever, because it's got a really great guitar riff. For what you like, Refused would be the band that I would give to you, that I would say to you. And then my number 5 is going to be Tame Impala. My wife and I saw them on our honeymoon in 2020. I've seen them live like 4 or 5 times. For what they charge for their shows, they are the best live act going, because they've got amazing visuals. Kevin is an amazing musician, but I love them a lot. like a lot. So much so that my wife and I weren't sure exactly when we were going to get married, and we got tickets to see them in the LA Forum in March of 2020, and got married like literally as the pandemic was happening. They were the second to last concert at the Forum for 2.5 years, and we got to go see them there. So yeah, it's a little all over the place, but very similar in the same senses too.
It may be eclectic in that sense, but overall, if you look at the grand scheme and the design of where those things come from, exactly what they kind of stand for, it still does synonymize, somewhat in terms of a retrospective look. With, for example, your Rammsteins, founded in 1994, they were predominantly, they used to be in punk bands before Rammstein.
Right.
So when you take into consideration exactly what they formed, how Hypocrisy was formed in 1990 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, how Lindemann was formed when Peter talked to Greg until Lindemann decided, hey, let's make a supergroup and have a giant baby, and they made 2 amazing albums. There were a lot of the particular niche metals and niche post-punks in the 80s and the 90s that in the 2000s, as around like 03, 04, it just slowly started to die off. Like, I still remember when I think it was Clint Lowry from Sevendust left to start Dark New Day, and it literally just ended up sounding exactly like Sevendust, but with a slightly different vocal background, and there was next to no difference behind it.
Right.
No disrespect to Clint Lowry. Thank you for taking time that time show in Atlanta. Please don't hate. If you're listening, you're never going to listen to the show, but if you do, nothing personal. It's just Brother was one of those songs, dude, where you could have gotten Legion to do the vocals and it would have sounded exactly like a Sevendust song. But you take into account what you just mentioned with, like, the Refused, the post-production, like post-hardcore scene. I want to kind of shout out John Draper of the Spitball Media podcast. His band, Lament, is coming out with some new music, and they're going to be doing some great things in 2026. So keep a lookout for that. But when you and I look at our experiences, our comfort zones, our plush animal of music content, so to speak, I think they deliver the same kind of message. Both you and I have clearly been through some different kind of shit in our lifetime. We have experienced our fair level of ups and downs on this lovely roller coaster we call reality. And the music that we listen to is kind of synonymous with that. Radiohead is one of the most beautiful bands in the history of music, especially when it comes to the haunting, crafting vocal in harmonization with some of the melodies that they make. It's second to none. Like, I'm pretty sure that I may be mistitling it here, but the Radiohead song "I Disappear" or "How to Disappear,"
how to disappear completely and never be found.
That's it.
Yeah, that's.
Oh my God,
saw them.
dude.
Yeah, I saw them in 2012 for the first time I got to see them live because they don't tour the States much. They played at the hockey venue in Glendale, Arizona, and I got floor seats, and like I worked my way up, and I'm not a big fan of like getting up close for shows, but for like them, I just kind of made it happen. The best video I've ever taken of a concert was of that song, because since there's no bass, like when you see people's concert videos, a lot of times like the bass will kind of kill it, and because it's perfect. And yeah, no, that's that album Kid A came out when that one, and then Amnesiac after. That was the first Radiohead album that I got to like listen to early because I was working at the record store and we got the promotional copy. And yeah, no, that album is amazing.
Like, you compare Radiohead with like a lot of earlier bands, and like, well, I guess some bands that are still doing some things. Like, I've heard comparisons between Radiohead and Oasis, and I can't help but think about how absurd that is. First and foremost, Noel and Liam Gallagher are pieces of shit human beings, and I will go on record saying that they are terrible human beings. But Radiohead offers so much more in terms of not only their album offerings, their discography, but how they layer each and every single song, how it resonates deeply. Like, what is Oasis really well known for? One fucking song that they have somehow to ride the coattails on for 35 years. You look at music now and you see that it's a completely different beast, but all the way, even back in the times when you and I were in our formative years, there were times when you could clearly see that an industry or a particular genre was being shaped by a band or bands, like how Nine Inch Nails managed to do with the entire industrial metal scene. They completely turned it upside down, made a lot of great people in whom were inspired directly by them afterwards And when we look at music as a whole, we are very fortunate and very grateful to be a part of, like, for lack of a better term, you still work in the music industry from here and there. I've been active in the music industry for about 20 years at this point. So we take into consideration what we have listened to, what has inspired us, what has motivated us, and what pushes us forward. It goes back into our interest in professional wrestling. The theater, the character, the energy, the lyricism. You look at some of your favorite band covers, and what do they have? They either have a design that resonates with you, they have the band in a particular stance or focus that will be burned into your image for years, and you also understand that, wow, I might be listening to something that might stand the test of time here. It's one of the reasons why when you take into account 80s and 90s hip-hop, some of the absolute best hip-hop in the 80s and 90s came from bands that made their things on Casio fucking computers and keyboards and sampled things from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and so on. One of the reasons why Still Dre is one of the most popular songs is because that sample was ripped from an earlier song in the 70s. One of the reasons why the next episode is as popular as it is because that was also ripped from a sample in the 70s as well. Any single musical talent that you look at in hip-hop, they paid tribute, they paid homage, and the 80s and 90s hip-hop, I will go on record as saying, is probably some of the best music that has ever been created, bar none, specifically in 4 different areas: Los Angeles, California, New York City, United States, Atlanta, Georgia, and Detroit, Michigan. In all the other areas, there were a lot of great bands, but in those particular 4 focal points in the 80s and 90s, there was just so much good music coming out of there. You would be hard-pressed to not find a tape deck or a cassette or an 8-track that was completely filled with nothing but pure beauty. And I mean, when you come into consideration with Radiohead and how you view it and how you internalize it and how you feel it, it would be almost like somebody telling you that the Killers are a better band than Radiohead. You'd have to kind of tilt your head at them and be like, really? Are you joking?
Well, I mean, I've learned the older I get that there's no accounting for taste, and some people's taste is their taste, and that's their taste. But when I worked in the record store, there was a lot of arguments that we used to make about terrible bands or different things. It's funny you mentioned Oasis and Radiohead, because I just watched the other day, forget what it was called, but it was like a BBC documentary on Britpop, mostly on Blur versus Oasis when they had the singles thing in like 96 or 97. And like the documentary even talked about how other bands were around. And like they purposely mentioned like Radiohead came out at the same time. They were British, but were never Britpop. Anybody who kind of combines them into it is only like listening to the singles and not even listening to like the B-sides on the singles, because that used to be a thing too before all music was available on your phone. You used to have to like go try to find things, and like I still have the collection of Japanese and British import singles of Radiohead that I used to get, because they would either have different songs you never heard or different versions of different songs. Like there's a few of my favorite Radiohead songs that really aren't on any album. They're on like the Japanese import version of albums or the import singles of them, but that was how you had to listen to them back then. Now it's just in the catalog, and you can listen to every song that a band's put out. And it's, again, like we talked about earlier, the thrill of the chase. Like that was one of my favorite parts of working at the record store, was when we would do import sales, and I would have a stack of Radiohead CDs that were technically available, like they were in the store, but you wouldn't have been able to find them. I had them hidden, and I would grab them and buy them all, and we could have them when there was the 50% off sale, because also import versions, you're buying a single that has 4 songs on it for $27.
Yep.
50% off was a little bit easier for me to handle, especially back then. Making minimum wage working at the record store, but it was a lot of fun.
The Japanese bonus tracks, man. There are some albums that came out between 95 and 2013 that had just absolutely exquisite bonus tracks. For example, like I went to a Beck show in 2018 at the Rogers Center, Rogers Stadium. I don't know what the hell it's called. It used to be called the Sound Academy. It used to be called the Docks. It used to be called Ontario Place, Exhibition Place, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
We go to see Beck, and Beck is one of those bands / artists to where I've listened to ever since I was able to form a collective memory with Stereo Pathetic Soul Manure coming out in 1994. All throughout his trajectory as an artist, he has continued to just do whatever he wants to do, puts out whatever he puts out, and he is probably one of the best to do it. Has one of the most hauntingly beautiful voices that people have tried to replicate and can almost never duplicate anywhere. And you take into consideration how he released music very specifically. There were a lot of tracks on Sea Change. Actually, sorry, not a lot. My apologies. There were 2 tracks on Sea Change that were only available via the Japanese special edition, and it took forever to get that album because the Ship in a Bottle, the 13th song on that 12-song album, was the most highly sought after song at that time. Not because all the songs were trash, but because that song was just that good. But now,
right, and it was that, and I mean, and those imports were, it was almost mythical at a point too. Like you couldn't, like if somebody had it or was able to get it, like I can remember when you were first like able to burn CDs, you had to have like 2 disk drives in your freaking desktop computer to make it work. Like that was the first thing I thought of was like, how can I get my hands on, like, who's got a CD where I can get that one song off of it? Or you get the whole thing for that one, because the CD that came out in North America had 12 tracks, but the Japanese import had 14 in those last 2. Oh, it's a mythical, like when you actually got your hands on it, like I can physically remember just that feeling of like, oh my God. And even if the song wasn't that great, it wasn't really about that. If the song was great, it was even better. But it like really was just like, I'm able to hear what I haven't been able to hear because you weren't just able to download it on your computer. Like it was just a whole different world. Oh, I get like when you said like, I can feel it.
It was amazing for us to understand that, wow, this other side of the world listens to the exact same music that we do, but they also get special stuff. This is great.
Yeah.
Let's grab it for ourselves. I mean, we take it into consideration, as you just mentioned, you know, the whole rise of, oh, we can just click on a song and find it at whim now. There's like, the charm has completely disappeared. It has all but moved itself to another area of our lives where that charm is now replaced with, oh boy, I wonder if they have something on the Uber Eats menu today, or oh boy, I hope
it's
they have
transactional now. It's just another transaction. Yeah, you nailed it. No, the DoorDash Uber Eats comparison is almost perfect because it's just like you can get, like, instead of having to go out to the restaurant and like making an effort to it, now you just order it, it gets delivered to your house. You don't even have to put on pants. Same idea with the music. It's just become more transactional as opposed to something that was part of you. And that's, again, I'm not trying to shit on the current, but and that's also too why you get some of that music where, I hate to be like the old man where it's like, that sounds like noise, but I mean, a lot of what's being made, because it's like one person on a computer, they don't have to actually put any musical effort into it. So it doesn't come out sounding like anything but then it sells and does well. So good for it, I guess. But I mean, does it sell or does it just get a bunch of streams? There's the difference. How much are they actually getting out of it? Which is also why concert tickets are so expensive now. My wife and I, that was like when we met, that was our thing. Like the reason we met online and we both put up like a list of concerts we were going to. And like if we each put on 10, like 6 or 7 of them matched up. So, and like there was a local music festival that was like a mile from our house that used to have good acts that we would go. We went to it every year from 2014 until we even went this year, but we're not going next year because it's now just a bunch of like EDM DJs they don't have the same feel and appeal. And concerts now, they've gone up, exponentially. Like concerts that used to be like, when I was a kid, it was $5, $8, and $10. If you paid $12, it was astronomical. And now, like, we just went to a concert last week and it was $38. And it's like at a small venue for a band that's not that big. It's just, and I don't even want to think about what I paid for 9 Inch Nails, but I had to go see them.
That was worth every penny, though. And you take
it was, and they put on they put on an amazing show. They had the main stage. They even had like a middle stage in the middle of the crowd. Like it was, and they play for 2 hours. They know what they're doing. They know what you're getting out of it, as opposed to some bands you see and they play like an 80-minute set, and you're like, that's it. Like if you've got 1 or 2 albums, okay, but I mean, like you mentioned Oasis earlier, and I do like the What's the Story Morning Glory album. That is a good album. The rest of it, not as big on, but. Like, I looked at their set list from their recent like, they played a good amount of songs. I think it was like 18 or 19. I'm like, for what you're charging people, you need to be playing like 20 songs, take a half-hour break, and then give us like 10 more, motherfucker. That's what they were charging. Good Lord.
It's like going to see Rod Stewart. You're not really expecting much because the guy's in his 70s or 80s at this point.
Right. That's more of seeing the icon. Yeah.
You know? you look at it from that perspective as a consumer and not necessarily just as a fan, but as somebody who's trying to figure things out day to day,
Yeah.
trying to balance your own finances. And then you have these people who are only going to come out and play 5 or 6 songs, and they're going to charge you $2,000 to do it. That's another reason why, when we take into consideration our experiences, both our careers in music respectively,
Yeah.
it's a very cutthroat industry for the most part, but there's still that. I kind of compare it to the people are more than willing to give up years of their lives to experience, or years of their lives to suffer and to sacrifice, only to experience moments of majesty or happiness or joy. We are conditioned
Yeah.
as a species to behave like that. So you take into consideration the amount of money and the amount of time. Somebody sees a Nine Inch Nails ticket, like, no, I'm actually not going to use them as a base here. Somebody sees a Taylor Swift ticket. Somebody sees a Nicki Minaj ticket. Somebody sees a Cardi B ticket, and it's at a stadium, and they're wondering, why do I have to pay $1,500? Dude, go support the up-and-coming homies that are at your local metal, your local indie, your local horror, your local fucking anything, your local anything scene, because at the end of the day, the stadium shows are being put out not necessarily by bands, but by people, by corporations who manage the bands that are literally only looking to get that nostalgia grip out of people so they can get that fast dollar. It's how the whole Backstreet Boys, the NSYNC comebacks have been. It's how everything.
Well, and I mean, as an artist too, that's pretty much how they make their money anymore, and that's the other reason why concert tickets got so expensive, because they're no longer selling the physical media. Even if they only made like $2 off a $15 CD, you sell 3 million of them, you're going to make $6 million. Okay, but now it's like you're got to do Spotify streams, and I can't even imagine how many you got to listen to get a penny out of those. I've got over 100 episodes on my podcast stuff, and I think I just hit $10 yesterday. So it's like, and I mean, that's with people trying to listen to the content. So, and those are hour-long episodes. For people listening to a 3-minute song, you got to like stream a lot of them for them to make anything out of it, and that's fine. But it's just, I've been very judicious with this concert. My wife and I used to go to stuff where it's like, oh, I know a couple of their songs, but $20 for each of us to go. The venues, literally, you can take the light rail. It's 3 stops away. Sure, we'll go. Now it's like, I don't really want to pay $40 per concert or per ticket. And then it's, and never mind that what you pay for at the venues, whether it's drinks or food or whatever, is all at least a third more than it used to cost.
It's literally.
I know for a fact the whiskey ginger ales have gone up.
In that stage, when you look at the cost of everything that it costs to go to a concert, that is one of the reasons why indie wrestlers now are basically multimedia, multi-business,
got to be.
people. That's why Joe Hendry is as successful as he is because he is literally doing everything himself, and he has all the skill to do it all himself, and people are learning from him as they go. It's one of the reasons why Killer Cross is as successful as he is on the indies right now and has been before, because one, he is an excellent character. He is an outstanding person as a human being. He gets what people want to see and what they come to purchase. He understands that the time that people invest in him are going to be some of the greatest times that they will ever collectively experience. So he goes out of his way to try to make his interactions with his fans a nice endeavor. You go to a band show that is just standard general admission. You pay your $1,400 and you don't pay $2,200 for the VIP meet and greet where you get a 10-second conversation with somebody. You're looking at it from a perspective of, okay, where am I going to get the most value? And as you know, it sounds kind of messed up to be saying it that way, because my goal as an artist, in addition to being able to provide for myself securely, financially, take care of my bills, live modestly and all that, but is to reach someone's mind, reach someone's ear, and to remind them that no matter what they experience, no matter what they go through, that both you and I, on the opposite sides of this particular medium, we are just human beings. I am not somebody in whom is ever going to be completely unreachable. And you know what? For as many of the business courses and self-improvement courses and all these books, they tell you never make yourself available to anybody all the time because it gives the impression of desperation. No, you want to know what that gives the impression of? It gives the impression of someone in whom is capable of maneuvering, of manipulating their schedule and or their free time and or their leisure time, so they can hopefully see somebody else reach a level to where they've had a dream, they've had an idea, they want to escape the calamity of this reality, they want to make their dream come true. That is beautiful to see when somebody comes to you or when you hear of somebody having a dream. To see that dream get crushed is one of the worst things that you could ever see a person go through. So going forward, as it's been made quite clear, when it comes to how both you and I make content, there are going to be a lot of opportunities for people to engage and say, hey, I like this about this program. I like that about that program, blah, 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 blah. Here's what I think you should do. Comments, reviews, subscriptions,
Please,
subscribes. Don't care. You think a part of a segment sucks? You think an Annihilation Announcement could have used a little bit more of an edge? You think a joke of the day was just absolute trash? Fine. Email us. Tell us how to do better. If you're sitting there complaining or griping about anything in life and not offering a solution, and this is separating from the podcast and or the media approach, but in life, you have an opportunity. Mostly everything sucks. Life in our current day and age is difficult. It is very complex, and it is not a very simple path to perdition. We have to be kinder to ourselves. We have to be nicer to ourselves. We have to remember to relax, to reprieve, and to remember our beauty within our souls that is important for each of us to internalize when we are also interacting with other people. Almost everyone we talk to, guaranteed they're going through some sort of hell. It's just the way it is now. So when we look at things from that approach and we want to offer a hand, a little bit of information here and there, it's kind of trying very almost futilely trying to start a new revolution of, hey, it doesn't matter how big I or you or whoever become. I don't care, when I get back to making six figures a year. I don't care if I have millions of dollars in the bank. I'm still going to take time to talk to somebody who needs an ear, who needs some advice, who wants some opinions on something because they can't hear themselves. And you've done that yourself. You've done that for a ton of people. I could tell you a ton of people who have told me nothing but good things about how nice you've been to them, how your content makes them feel, how you as a person are very separate from a lot of the other programs and a lot of the other episodes of content they listen to. That's another reason why I'm glad that we had you here today, Jake, is because you are a very nice soul. You do everything you can to help those around you. And with that being said, what I would like to do to conclude the program is I want to give you the floor to plug anything and everything, anyone and everyone that you would like to.
I appreciate it. Yeah, well, it's funny you said it because I live by a very simple set of rules. And rule number one is just don't be a dickhead. Just don't. Like, that's it. Like, I mean, if someone's jerk to you, like, I've modified it. Like, just don't be an unprovoked dickhead. Like my wife and I used to go to a lot of music festivals. I went to Coachella in 2012, 13, and 14. Went to Lollapalooza 16, 17, and 18. Like, we used to, and like, there was a few simple rules. Like, number one rule, just don't be a dick. Walk a little further, usually in a smaller line, wear comfortable shoes. There's general rules for life. But the number one is don't be a dick. But yeah, I'm very easy to find on all platforms. I've kind of taken the AltJake name and just taken it over and everything. Pretty much right now, I'm just using Twitter, YouTube, and all podcast platforms. It's just at AltJakeTakesOn. I do have an Instagram built. I just haven't actually used it yet. Getting there. I'm a one-man operation with all the technical sides of it. But yeah, the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I upload everything as quickly as we record it to post it because, there's no varmint, there's no time, and there's no sense in dragging any of it out. Nothing is paid for at this point. Everything is free. Everything's uploaded right away. All subscriptions are free. If people want to donate, there's ways to. But at this point, like you said it earlier, right now, I'm just trying to build an audience. If there's a bigger way to get more eyes and ears on us, great. At some point, if there's a way to monetize it and make money, we'll cross those bridges when we get there. But as of now, it's just about getting more people in and having a great community. And so we do a recorded episode each week. I usually drop that on Friday. I usually try to drop it like during SmackDown so that if people want to watch something and more wrestling afterwards, they can kind of just go right over to it. And then we do our recorded episode every Thursday, our live episode every Thursday at 8:45 Eastern on YouTube, and then live on X at 8:05 p.m. Eastern. Through my account, both at AltJakeTakesOn. The YouTube, if you catch up with us live and you put a chat in there, as long as you're not putting like words that YouTube doesn't like, I'll put every chat on the screen at this point. I respond to every comment because that's like you said, we're trying to build an audience, have a little community, and try to be something that's a little different in the sense where, like if somebody has constructive criticism, a way to do things better as opposed to just complaining. Like if you're just going to comment that everything sucks, well, that's not helpful. But if you're like, hey, I disagree with you here, awesome, let's have a conversation about it. That's fine. We can disagree. We don't all have to be in the exact, we are not all like the same robot, like not yet, at least. We're not in the Matrix yet. So let's at least have we can be interactive. We can have differences of opinion. Like if you and I, like example, if I don't like a specific type of food and you think it's the greatest food on the planet, that just means more food for you. Isn't that a good thing? Like we can be fine. So it's very interactive. We try to have fun with it. And then the Sunday Spaces show, we usually will like review whatever is going on, but then we'll talk and bring people on as well. So if somebody has something they want to say or interact with us, just request to speak. As long as we've got time for it, we'll let anybody say anything of it because we go live on Twitter, but if anybody gets too lippy, we can edit them out. But so far, we haven't had any issues. We haven't had any problems. Everybody's been very, very interactive. We've had a couple people like think we were going to be talking shit, but they've realized very quickly, like, oh, no, these guys are cool and just trying to have fun with it, which is the goal. So come join us, follow us on X, YouTube, any podcast platforms. If there's a podcast platform someone's on and we're not on there, DM me on Twitter. I will make sure that we're on it. But as far as I know, we are on all the major platforms and getting some views. So that's all I really care about. It's been a lot of fun, though. I'm glad this is a trigger that we pulled officially in February of this year. I was really nervous to do it, but I'm glad I did. It's been a lot of fun. Like I said earlier, my dad's best advice he gave to me before he passed away was, you don't regret what you do, you regret what you don't. So I keep that in mind. And at that note, I keep putting out content. It's fun. So until it's not or something, I will continue to do it.
And on that note, you have been an absolutely outstanding individual.
Thank you. This was a great conversation.
For listening to your program, your voice, your energy, everything that you put out. It feels like days, weeks ago that January, February of this year was upon us. But now as we reach into November/December, the holiday season is upon us. And as much as a lot of people hate the holiday season, there's something nice about seeing like people putting out lights despite the fact that they hate their lives. Something nice about people going to get themed holiday cups from coffee shops, even though they have something hard going on. There's a lot of time that we're going to be able to take to each and every single listener and every single individual in whom wants to discuss something over the holiday season. So please reach out to AltJakeTakesOn on the various platforms in which he has just described. Reach out to us at podcast@gmail.com. We would like to shout out specifically, as well as will be within the credits portion of this show, that Don Stoney, absolutely tremendous contributor to both AltJakeTakesOn information for this podcast, as well as for me and for the Cheating Death podcast. He has provided us with a realm of positive information in terms of sports that is second to none, sir. Thank you so much. We'd also like to shout out our legal liaison, Evil Dose, Jeff Lippman. He can be reached at twitter.com/IcarusFell. And if you have any questions for Jake, you may do so by reaching out to him directly on Twitter or YouTube. And we appreciate very much so the time that you have spent with us. And until next time, America, take care of yourself and each other.
Peace.
Today's joke has been brought to you by the Cleric of Chaos and is inspired by the ever-so-humid state of Arizona. What is the only sign of intelligence in Phoenix? Tucson, 116 miles away. On today's program, Jake and the Cleric of Chaos provided you with a top 5 list of their favorite songs. However, we're going to provide you with a bonus top 5, and that is the top 5 stuffed animals. Yes, we are serious. Coming in at number 5, we have anything and everything Pusheen related. Of course, a standard ubiquitous plushy variety, Pusheen is outstanding and adorable. Coming in at number 4, we have anything possum related. Possums are cute, misunderstood, and outstandingly tremendous. Coming in at number 3, we have the Super Pusheen selection. Pusheen, but bigger. Coming in at number 2, we have Pokemon plushies, whether it be your Eevee, your Pikachu, your Charmander, your favorite variety. There is always a comfort zone, especially if you have a Magikarp plushie. And of course, coming in at number 1 is your plushie. Why? Because it's your plushie. It's your friend. Is your confidant. What is your top 5 favorite plushie list? Email us at thecheatingdeathpodcast@gmail.com. We want to take this time to thank Jake A. for being a lovely leviathan of a guest on our episode of the Cheating Death podcast today. Remember to follow him on all of his social media platforms and tune in if you can when he and George Captor are live with their respective content creative programming episodes. Thank you to all the listeners and who make this program what it is. Take care of yourselves and each other. The Cheating Death podcast has been brought to you by Nacht and Leben CRDVC, CR Deutschland, Chaos Realm Records, and Apple, Google, Spotify podcasts, and of course our hosting platform Spreaker, where for just $3.99 a month you are able to become a member of our supporters club. You may make a one-time donation to support the program at buymeacoffee.com/clericchaos. If you'd like to support and follow the program, you may do so at twitter.com/weallcheatdeath or twitter.com/clericofchaos. And if you would like to book a meeting with the Cleric of Chaos for your upcoming artistic or business meeting, you may do so at linktr.ee/clericofchaos. And that, of course, applies for all of your merch, media, cameo, and much, much more. If you or anyone you know is experiencing psychiatric or psychological duress, please have them call 1-800-273-8255 or dial 988 from their mobile phones in the United States or Canada. If you or anyone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please contact 1-800-799-7233. That's 1-800-799-7233. If you're looking to adopt a playful puppy or a cute kitten, please visit your local animal adoption rescue center. And of course, please visit all of our personnel, friends, consultants, and fine friends of the program at the links in the description below, and our pinned profile post over at twitter.com/weallcheatdeath and twitter.com/clericchaos. Remember, we're pulling for you. We're all in this together.